Hi, my friends. Welcome back to the Christian Moms Cafe. I'm so glad you're here today. I want to invite you to settle in for a moment and maybe grab your coffee or your tea and just take a deep breath because these are going to be my favorite kinds of conversations. These are the ones where we can just sit together, slow down, and talk honestly about what life is really feeling like in this season. In our last episode, I shared a bit about the transition that I'm currently in, moving out of the homeschooling years, you guys, and stepping into something brand new, a new rhythm, a new identity in some ways, a new season of motherhood. And today I want to sit with you and just talk about something that's been really present on my heart lately. How do we love our kids without holding on too tight? Because if you're anything like me, you love your children deeply, fiercely, wholeheartedly. And yet there comes a point where that love has to shift. It has to stretch, and it has to learn how to release. And that's not always easy. You know, one thing I've been realizing is that no one really prepares you for how slowly letting go happens. We think it's going to be one big moment, like the day they leave home or the day they go off to college. And that's part of it, but it's not just that. It's 1,000 small moments that quietly add up over time. So I remember when my eldest daughter first started driving, and now my youngest is learning to drive. And there's just something about watching your child get behind the wheel of a car and then drive away from your house on their own for the very first time. And you're standing there and maybe you're waving, holding your breath a little bit. And in that moment, you realize that, hey, something has definitely shifted because they don't need you the same way they did. And then there were all the moments that followed that, watching them, for example, my youngest daughter, as she's now in school, watching her get ready for prom, watching her prepare for homecoming and just standing in front of the mirror and laughing with her friends, trying on dresses, taking pictures. And you're just there, but you're also not at the center anymore. You're witnessing it. You're seeing the light that shines through their eyes and the joy that your kids are having, and you're supporting it. But it's their world, and that's what's expanding now. And I remember sitting with them as both of them have applied for colleges, and my youngest right now is in the midst of receiving her acceptance letters. I was there, helping her fill out the forms, helping her write the essays, and really just helping her to see who she is and what she brings to the table so that she can talk about her future with these colleges. And I realized that these weren't just applications. They were decisions that were going to take my kids out of the home and into their own lives. And then with my oldest daughter, just watching her graduate college almost 2 years ago, and then moving out of our home and starting her own career, just like that, a whole chapter of motherhood came to a close. And now here I am again, walking through this same process with my youngest daughter, preparing to let her fly too. And I'll be honest with you, there is a quiet ache that comes with this season. It's not loud. It's not overwhelming all the time, but it is present and it's with me. Because while their lives are getting fuller, ours, my husband's life and my life, is getting more spacious. And that space can feel unfamiliar. That space means there's some emptiness there, where the kids used to fill that space and not so much anymore. And I think one of the hardest parts about this season is that you're holding two things at the same time. There's so much pride. You look at your children, you think, we did this. Like, I did it. They're kind. They're capable people. They're becoming who they're meant to be. And there's nothing more beautiful than watching that. But at the same time, there's this quiet grief, a letting go of a version of motherhood that you've known for years, maybe even decades. The daily rhythms, the noise in the house, being needed in the small, constant ways, even the ways that get on your nerves sometimes. Mom, where's this? Where's that? I lost this. I can't find that. Just the little toy cars and the dolls and all the things that you would trip over in the middle of the night because someone forgot to clean their toys off the floor. Just the little things. Those are all changing. They're all gone. They're part of my past. And so you might be thinking, okay, these things are different now, but guess what? You're still a mom. That doesn't go away, but your role is shifting. And sometimes that shift can feel disorienting. And you might find yourself asking, who am I in their lives right now? And what does my role look like going forward? Am I holding on too tightly, or am I letting go too soon? And underneath all of that, there's a deeper question that begins to surface. It's, how do we love our kids deeply without holding on so tightly that we limit who they're becoming? Because that's really what this is all about. It's not about loving them less. It's not about disconnecting. It's about learning how to love them differently in a way that gives them room to grow, room to stretch, and room to become who God created them to be, even when that looks different than what we expected. I want to share a few things that I'm learning right now, and it's not because I have it all figured out, but it's because I'm walking through it in real time right now. You guys, I am going through the letting go process, and it's not easy. So the first thing that stands out to me is shifting from control to trust. Because for so many years, motherhood has been hands-on for me, for all of us, right? Because we guide, we protect, we make decisions. We're involved in everything. But then there comes a point when that begins to change and we have to start releasing control, not all at once, but little by little, and stepping into something that can feel a little uncomfortable at first. It's trust, okay? Trusting what we poured into them, that God has got them, right? Trusting the values that we've taught them, trusting the foundation that's been built over the years. And most importantly, trusting God, because the truth is God has always been with our kids. Even in the moments when we felt like everything depended on us, at some point, our role shifts from managing their lives to trusting the work that's already been done. Secondly, you have to let love evolve. Because love doesn't go away in this season, but it does change its shape. There was a time when loving them looked like making decisions for them, or setting boundaries, or being deeply involved in every part of their day. But now it looks different, and it will look different from now on. It looks like more like listening than speaking, listening more rather than talking at them, respecting their choices, even when you don't agree. Giving them the dignity to figure things out, even when you want to rescue them, even when it's hard to watch. And I think this is one of the biggest adjustments because we're used to being needed in a certain way. And now we're learning how to show up in a new way. Thirdly, allowing our kids, our growing adult kids, to become themselves. This one goes deep. Because as they're teenagers, as they're children and then teenagers, they grow. They begin forming their own perspectives. So then when they're young adults, they have their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own way of seeing the world. And for those of us who have raised our children in faith, believe me, especially those of us who have homeschooled our kids and have spent an enormous amount of time pouring our hearts and souls into the teaching and training of our kids, there can be a moment where we realize that their relationship with God is no longer something that we guided, but now it's something that they have to choose, something they have to wrestle with, and they have to make their own. It's their choice now. And that can feel super vulnerable for us mamas, because what was once front and center in their lives, because we made it that way, can sometimes feel like it's moved into the background. And in those moments, we have to come back to the idea of trust all over again. Trusting that God is still present. Trusting that seeds planted in love don't just disappear. Trusting that their journey is still unfolding. And God's not done with them. And they still have a journey to unfold. Even if it doesn't look exactly how we imagined, we have to trust that God is doing the work in their lives. Number 4, we got to stay connected to our kids without being clingy. All right, there's a balance that we're learning in this season because we don't pull away completely, but we also don't hold on so tightly that it creates tension. So instead, we have to shift into a new posture of being available without hovering and being present without inserting ourselves into every decision they're trying to make. And then being supportive without trying to control the outcomes. We move from being the center of their world to being a place that they know they can always come back to, where mom and dad are safe. I can go back home. I can ask the questions I need to ask. I can get a nice warm meal. I can sleep over. I can do what I need to do. They need to come back to a place that feels safe, a place that feels steady, and a place that feels like home, no matter how far they go. Okay? And that's hard for parents. Once again, I'm talking to moms of faith. So many of us who are part of this podcast community, this has been a homeschool podcast for 14 years. So I'm speaking to the choir here. Most of us have really been invested in the spiritual upbringing of our children. And so it's hard to step into the outside of our children's world and watch them make their own decisions. But that's where I am right now, and that's what I have to do. So the fifth thing that I want to say about this is that we should, as mamas, begin tending to our own lives again. This is the part that I'm learning every single day, because as our children step into their lives, we're left with space. Like I said, there's this emptiness almost. It's so spacious, so much to fill up. Like, what do we do with the time that we were spending really actively involved and emotionally invested in our kids? That space can feel really uncomfortable at first, but I think it's also an invitation to come back to ourselves and to rediscover what brings you joy, what you're passionate about, what God might actually be calling you to do in this season of your life, because your life still matters. Your purpose didn't end when your children grew up. And as they're growing up, if you are a mom of younger kids, just know that when you get to that place, all of us who are going through it now and have been there can say that we understand and we want to support you and help you to step into your purpose as you're moving from one stage of motherhood to the next. In many ways, this new stage is a new beginning for us as moms. And at the end of the day, we were never meant to carry our children completely on our own. They were always God's first, even as we carried them in the womb, and now we're carrying them away from our homes into their next stage of life. We release our kids to God. We're not releasing them into uncertainty. We're releasing them into God's care. And that doesn't mean we won't feel the emotions that come with it, the sadness, the ache, the uncertainty, even the fear. But it does mean that we don't have to carry the weight of their entire future. We can trust that the same God who was with them in our homes is with them out in the world. So wherever you are today, maybe you're watching your child take those first steps toward independence. Maybe you're in the middle of this transition just like I am. Or maybe you've already walked through it and you're learning what life looks like on the other side. Just know this, that you're not doing it wrong. This is part of the journey of motherhood, loving deeply and learning how to release at the same time. So before we close, I want to leave you with something to reflect on this week. What might it look like for you to loosen your grip just a little bit and trust God just a little bit more with your child's life? And as we continue building this space together here at Christian Moms Cafe, I want to remind you that this isn't just my voice, it's our voice. So if you're a mom walking through a transition, if you're navigating a new season, if you have something on your heart to share, whether it's about wellness or faith, life transitions like we're talking about today, or purpose and calling, or even just the everyday practical things that we carry as women, from managing our homes or managing money, building careers while balancing family life, all of it. I would truly love to sit down and have a conversation with you here at our virtual cafe, our mom's space. This is a space for real stories and real women, real life. So if that's you, there is a link in the show notes where you can apply to be a part of a conversation here on the show. And I just want to thank you for sitting with me today with our cups of coffee or tea. This is exactly what I hope the space would be. I hope that I can build it out where we can talk honestly and reflect and encourage one another through every season of motherhood. And so, like I said in the very first episode of Christian Moms Cafe, which was our last one, I really want to make this a conversation, not just me talking, because I want to hear your voice too. And I want you to be part of this conversation. And in our next episode, we're going to continue this conversation and talk about identity in this season. what it looks like to rediscover yourself as your role begins to shift. I'm thinking that's what my next episode will be. We'll see if it pans out that way, but for now, that's the plan. And meanwhile, I will be waiting to hear from you if you'd like to be on the show. So don't forget to reach out to me in the link in the show notes to be on the show with me and have that conversation. So until next time, my friend, just take a deep breath, pour yourself something warm, and I'll meet you back here at the Christian Moms Cafe, where every mom belongs and every story matters.